time we start a new unit, I'm going to give you this academic vocab list. And that's why you have a section in your binder called academic vocab so that you can file this in that academic vocab section. In fact, tomorrow for your binder check, that's going to be one of the points that you have filed this in that section of your notebook. So make sure that you have your notebook with those 5 sections. Your syllabus should be the first page of your notebook, and then you need to have those 5 sections with this academic vocab filed in that academic vocab section. So let's start talking about how academic vocab assignments work. I'm going to read through this list, and then you're going to repeat after me, and you're going to put check marks next to the words that you already feel so familiar with that you could pass them if they were on a test today. So a quick introduction to academic vocab. What does academic mean? Academic means having to do with school or education. Academic vocab are the words that are essential or necessary to know in your classes in order to understand the material and to be successful. There's a quick little check for understanding there, so please grab your pen. It says, which italicized word in the following sentence would be considered an academic word? Circle it. I'm going to give you a moment to read that sentence on your own. It starts with in the prologue. So read that sentence and circle the italicized word that would be considered an academic vocab word. A word that you would need to know in English class, especially.
Can it be more than one?
Nope, just one. There's just one italicized word there. And Lauren, which word did you circle?
Foreshadowing.
Foreshadowing, exactly. Foreshadowing is an academic word that you would use in your English class to better understand the literature. Good job. My academic vocab expectations: use these terms in your in-class work, in your homework, and in-class discussions. Learning to talk the talk by using the academic vocab will increase your academic rigor and your learning. This leads to increased test scores and class grades as well. So if you'll look on my sideboard over here, we have the senior academic vocab board, and it already has the Anglo-Saxon unit vocabulary up there. So when you're working on your notes in class, or maybe your homework for in class, or you're having discussions at your tables and you know a word, it's right on the tip of your tongue, all you need to do is look at the sideboard so that you can use that academic vocab and boost your rigor in class and your learning. So here's the assignment. In addition to referring to this handout often during the unit, you remain responsible for independently adding specific examples during the course of the unit to each academic vocab word. So because this is our first time doing academic vocab, I am going to remind you occasionally, you should be adding that to your list, you should be adding that to your list. But in the future, as the semester goes on, you're going to be doing this totally independently. And it is due on test day. So your Anglo-Saxon unit test will be on August 27th. So go ahead and write that at the top of your paper, due 8/27. That's when this will be due. And it is going to be a double grade. It's going to count as a quiz grade because it is a pretty rigorous assignment. Due 8/27. I'm really going to take some time today and go over in detail what I expect from you for each of these words so that for the very first time that you do this academic vocab assignment, you get as much detail in it as I am expecting so that you do it in subsequent assignments. All right, number 1, repeat after me, alliteration.
Alliteration.
Alliteration is the repetition of sounds at the start of nearby words. It's a sound device that you have probably learned about in other poetry units before, and it is a sound device that you're going to hear in Anglo-Saxon poetry. Here's what I expect from you. You need an excerpt from one of the pieces of literature that we read. Let me pause and tell you the 3 things we're going to read in the Anglo-Saxon unit are The Seafarer, it's a poem, so you're going to put quotation marks around it. Beowulf, which is an epic poem, it's longer and it's an entire work, so you're going to actually underline it because if you typed it, you would italicize it. And then we're going to read an excerpt from a novella called Grendel, and because it's a novella, it's a longer work, it too will be underlined. Okay, so you are going to need an example of alliteration either from The Seafarer or from Beowulf. You're going to need to use an excerpt. That means a word-for-word quotation, like a line from the poem, with quotation marks around it and the line number at the end. In addition to that, though, you need to point out in that line which sound is alliterated. Sally sells seashells by the seashore, you would maybe underline or use your highlighter and highlight all those S's at the beginning of those words and say the S sound is alliterated. So you need to pick out the sound from the line that you choose and tell me which sound is alliterated. So you could choose to write on your paper right now, take a couple notes and say, right under that alliteration definition, use excerpt. So that you remember you have to use an exact excerpt. Yes?
When we go to copy down the book, do we have to put the page number and the author's name as well?
Line number is good enough for me for this assignment. All right, number 2, please repeat after me. Caesura. A caesura is a pause or break near the middle of every line of poetry. This too is an Anglo-Saxon poetic device. And so you will do the same thing. You will copy down an excerpt and you will like circle or point to where the caesura takes place. And we'll cover that more later this week. But you do need an exact excerpt from one of those poems. All right, number 3, repeat after me. Elegy. An elegy is a poem, it's a type of poem that mourns the death of a person or laments something lost. You guys know the word eulogy? What's a eulogy? Yeah, speech at a funeral, like lamenting someone who has gone. And so an elegy is similar. It's a poem that laments something lost. I'm going to give you a sentence starter right now. That means I want you to write in that right-hand column the beginning of your answer. I want you to write, the seafarer is an elegy because. Don't forget to put quotation marks around the seafarer. I don't want you to just regurgitate the definition because it mourns something lost. You need to tell me what specifically is the seafarer mourning. So you need to be specific from the poem, but it doesn't have to be an excerpt. So start with that sentence starter. The seafarer is an elegy because. Number 4, repeat after me. Epic. Epic. What have you already read in high school that was an epic? The Odyssey. Yep. An epic is a long narrative poem that recounts the adventures of a legendary hero in pursuit of a goal of national importance. The hero's accomplishments reflect the values of his culture and usually figure prominently in the history or mythology of his people. What can you guess that you're going to read as an epic? Beowulf, exactly. Go ahead and do your sentence starter. Beowulf is an epic because, and you'll need to give specifics then from Beowulf that tell how you know it's an epic. Number 5, repeat after me. Foreshadowing. You probably are putting a check mark next to that one right now because that's a word you've been familiar with for many, many years. It prepares the reader for future events, actions, or revelations. It's the introduction of objects, facts, events, or characters that hint at or otherwise prefigure a developing situation or conflict. So you need to give me a direct quote from Beowulf, plus explain what it's foreshadowing. So if you could squeeze that in underneath the definition of foreshadowing, that would be a good note to jot down. You're going to give me a direct quote from Beowulf, plus what it is foreshadowing. Or explain how it is foreshadowing. Number 6, repeat after me. Heroic poetry is longer and it focuses on feats of a hero. So again, this is going to be Beowulf. Please start your sentence starter. Beowulf is heroic poetry because, and you probably will tell some of those feats then of our hero. that imitates another serious piece of work. Have you guys ever read the real story of the Three Little Pigs?
Yeah.
Where it's from the wolf's perspective? Okay, so that's kind of making fun of that original fairy tale of the Three Little Pigs. It is designed to ridicule or criticize the original. A parody imitates the traits of a literary work in order to make fun of the seriousness of those traits and to bring on a little laughter. In writing parody, humorists exaggerate features of a certain author, poem, story, play, or even song. So while we're reading Beowulf, we're going to pause for a day, and we're going to read an excerpt from a more modern piece of writing, a novella called Grendel. And it's written from Grendel's perspective, and Grendel is the monster in Beowulf. And so we're going to pause and read that parody for a day, analyze it, and see how he's made that poem of Beowulf still relevant. So you'll explain Grendel is a parody because, and that will be your sentence starter. And don't forget to underline the title of the novella. Novella meaning short novel. Number 10, something I hope you're all putting a check mark next to, and I've seen lots of them already. Number 10, repeat after me. Theme. Theme is the main idea or central purpose of a piece of literature and must appeal to human nature and must be consistent throughout the entire story. You must be able to explain the theme with one single idea. So Beowulf's main theme is heroic traits reflect a particular culture. Anglo-Saxon heroes embody courage, strength, and virtue. So what you're going to need to do in that space, and you've got quite a bit of space on here for this, is just explain how that entire poem of Beowulf shows that Beowulf embodies courage, strength, and virtue. So you'll need to give some details. You could choose to use excerpts if you wanted to, but that's not required for this one. All right, in number 11, there are several concepts below that illustrate this theme, but you have to understand that word concept. So if theme is the overarching umbrella of the entire literary work, concepts are like little sub-themes. They support the theme, they push the reader to understanding that theme, but they're not the main theme. And so here are some concepts from Beowulf, and you will need to use an excerpt for each of these in quotation marks with line number. When I say excerpt, it always means put quotation marks around it and cite the line number if it's a poem, page number if it's not a poem. All right, letter A is influences of religion. Both pagan and Christian beliefs influence this poem. Pagan meaning heathen with no belief in a personal God, so it might be referring to different gods or referring to things like fate, versus Christianity, which is a belief in one personal God. B, fair play is important in battle. We see this when Beowulf fights Grendel, and he insists on fighting fairly, so you'll need to record a line where he shows that. C, good and evil is portrayed through physical appearance, and we see that Beowulf is beautiful and Grendel is ugly, and so you need to find a line that shows that. Greed will destroy, find an example of that, and being placed in exile influences behavior, and the author tells us pretty quickly in the poem that Grendel was exiled by God, and that's why he's so disgruntled towards the humans who do believe in God. And so you'll need to find excerpts for all of those. Okay, please make sure that you have written on the front that it is going to be due on 8/27, and go ahead and tuck that away in the